Hey guys, it's M here, and today we're going to be reviewing geometry and shapes. So, let's look at this question. Consider the following cone inscribed in a cylinder. The coordinates of points P and Q are, respectively, P, -5, 7, -2, and Q, 3, -1, and 2, and are the endpoints of the diameter of the circular base. So, we see that the base is a circle, so we can assume that we would need the pi r squared formula for the area. We also see that this form in general is going to be a cone and a cylinder, so it's good to note down the respective formulas as well. So let's go on then. First, we have question A. Find the coordinates of the center of the circular base of the cone. First, I want you guys to try it out and think, how could you potentially solve for the center? I will start explaining in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so how would I solve this question? How would I approach it? Well, first, I'm going to see that it says center, and I'm going to actually rephrase it to midpoint. Why? Because then, realizing that this is the midpoint between these two endpoints, what I can do is I can actually use the midpoint formula, which is x1 plus x2 over 2, y1 plus y2 over 2, and z1 plus z2 over 2. You can just copy this down and just change the values for y and z, or if you remember it, great. So now at this point, we just substitute the values for p and q. So for p, we're going to get -5 plus 3 over 2. But because we are measuring total, if we're measuring midpoints, then we do 7 plus -1 over 2, and then we do z1 plus z2 over 2, which is going to be -2 plus 2 over 2. Now, you don't have to switch the negatives out or anything. This is not finding distance. This is finding midpoints. Uh, Otherwise, it would be a mistake similar to one I made when preparing for this class. So, here, we just quickly do some mental calculations. -5 plus 3 is -2 over 2, -1. -7 minus 1 is 6. 6 over 2 is 3. And -2 plus 2 is 2. 2 over 2 is 0. -2 plus 2 is 2. No, -2 plus 2 is 0. And 0 over 2 is 0. So, we found the center. Now what? Now, on to part B. Find the radius r of the circular base of the cone. First, think and try and solve this question on your own. I'll start explaining in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Well, the way I would solve this question is I would think, well, what is the radius in a circle? Sounds philosophical, doesn't it? Very TOK-like if you take IB. But it is just going to be the distance from one of the endpoints of the circle to the to the center of the circle, or the midpoint, as I said. So, how do we find that? Well, there's a great formula we learned for it in algebra, and that is going to be square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus square root of y2 minus y1 squared plus the square root of z2 minus z1 squared, and it is all going to be under one great unified root. So, do we have the midpoint? Well, the great thing is that IB builds on the previous questions, which is great. So we have this amazing midpoint here. And now I can choose to either calculate this from P or Q. Now, what should I choose, P or Q? Well, I am going to go with the latter because there's more positive values, which makes it a little bit less painful to calculate. So let's plug our values into the formula. I will utilize, I'll use q as x2. So we are going to be doing square root of 3 minus -1, which is going to be 3 plus 1 squared, plus y2 minus y1, so it's going to be -1 minus 3 squared, plus 2 minus 0 squared. I could switch them around places, doesn't really matter, as long as both values are plugged in, but for consistency, we will keep plugging in q for x2. So now we just simplify this. So we get square root of, what is it, -4, or 4 squared, which is going to be 16, plus -4 squared, which is also 16, plus 2 squared, which is 4. So now we get square root of 36, which is equal to our distance. So we can simplify it to 6 equals to the distance, which is just going to be the radius. So r is equal to 6. Awesome. So now we just have one final part left. And the final part is boom boom C. Find the volume of the inscribed cone. But look, we get a little nugget of information above it. The cylinder has a volume of 96 pi centimeters cubed. So, first, as per usual, I'm going to ask you guys to think. How would you solve this question? I will start explaining in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so for this, we're going to need our formulas. So the formula for a volume of a cylinder is pi r squared h, and the formula for a cone is 1/3 pi r squared h. So what are we going to do with that? Well, this is actually pretty interesting. Now, what relation can we see between these two formulas besides the awfully drawn h's? My bad. Um, I'll let you guys think. Okay, so we see that one is pi r squared h and the other one is 1/3 pi r squared h. And given that the first formula is for cylinder and the second one is for a cone, well, aren't we already given the volume of the cylinder, which is going to be 96 pi? So we could just multiply that by 1/3 without even having to find the height. So we're going to get 96 pi divided by 3. That's going to be the volume of the cone. Now we're just going to simplify that, and that is going to be 32 pi. Awesome. Now, my most important tips for geometry and shapes is just remember your formulas and think to how they relate to each other, as well as understanding what each part of the formula does, and what terms such as radius or center actually mean in the context of a question. That is going to be all for me. Thank you, and I wish you have a great rest of your day. I am off to hunt in the mountains, as per usual.